Hello and welcome to Deits Sports Talk. I'm your host, Robert Deers, alongside Nick Aguilera. I got Aaron Siegel as well as Anthony up there. And we're going to have a good show tonight. We're going to be talking about biogenesis, a big thing that's happened in baseball. A-Rod dealing with his suspension, appealing it right now. None of his players like it right now. And let's bring Aaron Siegel into the studio. Hey, Aaron, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to help you guys out and give you guys a quick little opinion on what I think about what's going on with the biogenesis stuff. And I think it's the big thing that's going on in baseball. It's going to change the game for a while.
And let's also bring Steven Hughes on. Hey, Steven, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Robert?
All right, well, let's go to MLB suspensions here. A big guy coming out of Texas, a man that unfortunately, for Texas, a team that's really in the AL West, behind the A's, about probably 3.5 back. What do you think of this? Nelson Cruz accepts it. You know, Johnny, as well as Johnny Peralta, a guy that's had an outstanding season for some reason, just comes out of nowhere. Aaron, I want to go to you first. What do you think of this whole A-Rod situation?
Well, I mean, I think first off, steroids in general. It's you could see from the players' perspective. At first it wasn't banned, and now there's big rules against it. Now it's a big proponent of MLB and what's going on with the sport in general. But A-Rod, I mean, first off, I can understand if you want to play, and you want to appeal, and you want to say, I didn't pass. I didn't take steroids. That's one thing. But for the Yankees to play you in a game after this just happened is totally wrong. It should be on the Yankees' fault. I know a lot of the players probably are not liking with what's happening and what he represents. Because the steroid era is becoming, a drug that you just can't use. You can't use steroids. You can't up your levels. And then, I mean, just you see with the other guys, at least they're accepting their penalties and their consequences. I think that's positive because that's showing you got to take accountability for your actions, especially because you're a role model. You're A-Rod. You're getting paid over $200 million in 5 years. You got to be a role model to all the New York fans, to the Yankee fans all around the world that you should just sit out. You can appeal, but don't play, and it's a bad thing that's happening with steroids and how good these players have been, but how tarnished the record's becoming.
I totally agree with you. I mean, now the Yankees, the fans are disappointed, in my opinion. The fans want to sit out, and the players don't understand why. They just don't understand why.
Yeah.
Why can't you sit out, make the Yankees organization just look good right now? We're already in a slump. We're 3.5 out of the wild card at this point. And let's go to Nick Aguilera. Nick, A-Rod, do you think he should play?
Honestly, I think A-Rod should not play. I think he should just accept it like a man. Take it. The Yankees, they don't need anything to ruin their reputation. I know everyone's gonna say 27 championships is enough to make up for that, but it's just not. A-Rod is kind of tarnishing their reputation right now, and Girardi too. Putting him in the lineup, I think he should just have him on the bench because of this whole biogenesis scandal.
And Steven, I want to ask you this question. What's the difference from this year's steroid era to Mark McGwire's, Barry Bonds era?
I feel like the game was full of steroids back in the day with Mark McGwire, who said that he played at a time that steroids couldn't be stopped, and everybody was using it left and right. You had Bond, you had Jeff Bagwell, Sammy Sosa, a bunch of guys using it, and it seemed like it can't stop. In this instance, the steroids, the steroids talk of people take it, it's starting to fade. But it started 2 years ago with Ryan Braun testing positive, and that got overturned by OB by appeal. But then last year, all broke apart with A-Rod having a relationship with Tony Bosch, the owner of the Biogenesis Clinic, and then everything erupted into this year, and then what turned out to be suspensions to 12 players for 50 games and A-Rod for 211. But the only difference I see from the tarnished legacies of those guys and McGwire and Bonds and Sosa who ruined the game to A-Rod's fact that McGwire, Sosa, and Bonds didn't get suspended for 211 games. This is more of a serious topic, but I feel like Major League Baseball did the wrong thing in having this suspension be effective on Thursday. I feel like it should have been effective immediately because you saw the reaction of the fans in Chicago after the fact that Hero got suspended. You saw a lot of boos and you saw a lot of discontent. And why is this guy playing? And I felt like Commissioner Basilic, he should have done the best interest of baseball policy, in which if a player is suspected and suspended due to a PED violation due to the CBA that they currently have, that the city should put in place the best interest of baseball, which is a suspension that's effective immediately. That should have been the case. And baseball, I feel like they really didn't do good in the suspensions. They did good on some parts, but on most parts, I feel like they didn't achieve what they could have done, and I don't think they handled it properly. And that's why A-Rod is appealing.
I totally agree with you, Steve. I mean, these eras are both different. We're banning people now, and people are actually learning this one. Anthony, I want to go to you for last thoughts about A-Rod. Anything else to comment on this?
Well, I've heard your guys' arguments throughout the course of the show, and you guys have basically covered it all except for one thing. Everybody else has accepted the penalties. They have admitted. They've said, okay, I did something wrong. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. But something that A-Rod is doing, despite the fact that, yes, he's appealing, he's making his team look bad. He's making himself look bad, and he's making the sport of baseball look bad. I mean, if you have one of the guys who's been the face of one of these storied franchises in baseball history come out and, just flat out deny and say no, And, for the 211 game suspension, for him to come out and just say, no, I'm not accepting this, that's tarnishing the sport right there, and that's disrespectful to the fans and the rest of the players, and that's probably why the rest of the players don't agree or anything with this situation.
And I just had a quick note, but I mean, Major League Baseball isn't going to give over a 200-game suspension if they didn't have enough evidence to back it up. So obviously, they got enough evidence on A-Rod to say you did it, you're lying about it, and you need to come tell the truth and act like a role model, act like a man, and just come forward with the evidence and the truth and what's been going on.
I totally agree with you. And Aaron C., before you go, I want to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
About Johnny Peralta and Nelson Cruz, two big guys.
And Everett Cabrera.
And Everett Cabrera, 3-time All-Stars. And Ryan Braun, all these suspensions. I mean, Ryan Braun is suspended throughout this season. They're suspended 50 games, Johnny Peralta, Nelson Cruz, and Everett Cabrera. What do you think of this? Do you think these guys should deserve more, or do you think 50 games was the right way to go?
Well, yeah, I like the 50-game suspension. I think it does them justice to they've got to become accountable for their actions, and I'm glad that these guys are stepping up and saying I'm not going to play. I'm not going to try to appeal, and do what A-Rod's doing on the other corner. And I mean they're very successful players, and they're good players, and they're players their names because. Their stats show up. They play for good teams, and this is going to affect their teams moving forward, and they know it. It could affect their playoff race, affect their championship, their percentage to win a championship, and down the road, who knows if Nelson Cruz would have helped out with the AL West, and we'll see what happens with that. But I was going to bring up another note about what Steven brought up was, back in the day, I talked to Paula Duca actually 2 weeks ago about this, a friend of a friend, but he said, I would use Dodgers letterhead and write to Balco or write to my steroid company. I need a new refill, and that's how prevalent it was because nobody nobody really thought of it. Everyone just said, oh yeah, you're using steroids, okay, cool. Like I see the stats improving. So now everyone knows about it. It's going to tarnish your reputation, and you got the internet, so Wikipedia, Twitter, they're all going to blast you, and everyone's going to know You should come forward with your steroid usage now before everyone just hates you and you get booed at every stadium you go to. So A-Rod should just come forward, stop playing, and just quit the appeal because it's not going to go in his favor. That's all I have to say. But thanks again for having me, guys.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. And Nick Aguilera, let's go to you on this situation. Nelson Cruz, Johnny Peralta, and Everett Cabrera. As well, I mean, 3 big players. I'm glad that they took the suspensions very well. And do you think they handled this? They handled this correctly?
Honestly, I think they handled this correctly with them, but they're not handling it correctly with A-Rod. I think that A-Rod should have been automatic because they have enough evidence. You're not going to like you said, you're not going to suspend someone who 211 games without any evidence. Like right now, I see Nelson Cruz. Obviously, Nelson Cruz wanted to lead that team, but just made a very bad decision. And I think it's going really. They took it really hard, but they took it like men. Like they actually took it. Did not. I'm pretty sure they're complaining about it, but they did not like try and deny it like A-Rod is trying to do.
I agree with you on that. I mean, these guys, well, I think Nelson Cruz is probably the biggest guy out of those, the guy that really led this team. And, Steven, I want to go to you on this. How big have these players really helped their team throughout this season?
I was just going to mention that. The three All-Stars among those 12, they've really had an impact on their team. I know Evan Cabrera is not going to have a big offensive impact for the Padres, who are probably going to struggle out of the playoff race. They just don't have a good enough team over there with inconsistency to do something. But Nelson Cruz and John Peralta, big time loss, especially Nelson Cruz. For John Peralta, the Tigers, they knew that he was under suspicion of this, that he's going to get suspended. They had a backup plan, and they made the right decision. They acquired infielder, and he's probably going to be a rookie sensation. But more a dark horse in a way. Jose Iglesias, they acquired him for the Red Sox, and the three-team deal that sent Jake Peavy over to the Red Sox. He was probably the best pickup during the trade deadline, only because it's going to help the Tigers. Miguel Cabrera's on and off in the lineup, and Jose Iglesias, he can play anywhere in the infield. He can go third base, shortstop, and second base. But for Nelson Cruz, that's a guy you can't really replace. And I think that's going to be the reason why the Rangers are not going to make it to the playoffs. I feel like the Rays and the Orioles are going to already lock up the spots for the wild cards very shortly. So the only way the Rangers will go to the playoffs is take over the lead in the American League West. And I don't see that happening, especially with the fact that Bartolo Colon did not get the double jeopardy suspension because he had a connection with Valjean along with Melky Cabrera and Yasmik Grandel, who also got suspended last year, but didn't get the double jeopardy suspension. That was kind of weird in my opinion that Major League Baseball didn't take actions on those guys, but I think the A's got the better end of these suspensions. Bartolo Colon has been on fire all year, 14-3 is a below 3 ERA. He gets nothing, while Nelson Cruz is going to be out for the remainder of the season, or probably 2 games less in the year when he comes back. So it's going to be a real downer for the Rangers. I think that's going to be the reason why the Rangers are not going to make it to the playoffs this year for the first time since 2009.
Yeah, and you make some good points there. I mean, Nelson Cruz, one of the biggest guys for the Rangers. Fortunately, he just couldn't really produce. Now he can't produce for this team, and they're only like 4 games back to the A's, and the A's are spread hot right now with the young talent. And I want to go to Anthony here. Out of these 3 players, what do you say was the biggest guy that got suspended out of those 3?
Well, if you're just talking about the 3 in terms of Peralta, Cabrera, and Nelson Cruz, you can make an argument for all 3 of them, but probably the most, the biggest impact player for any of those teams was probably Nelson Cruz. You look at the runs that the Rangers made to the World Series back-to-back years. Nelson Cruz was hitting 5th. He was in the middle of that lineup. He was driving in runs, hitting over 270 in both of those World Series, despite the fact they lost both of them. But he's been one of, if not the major cog for the Texas Rangers, to supplement what they had then. And then, with the leaving of Josh Hamilton, some of the injuries that they've had, Napoli's gone, they've had to rely on Cruz a little bit more. And maybe that's why he felt the need to take the steroids, because he's been thrusted into this type of role that he hasn't necessarily been in the past. So, who knows on that front, but compared to the other guys, Cabrera on the Padres, I didn't really consider them in contention in the first place. And Peralta, well, the Tigers have plenty of depth in that lineup to be able to adapt to his bat not being in there. So, Cruz is the main guy that's going to be missed for these suspensions.
I totally agree with you. Nelson Cruz, the big guy, besides A-Rod. And, let's cover another big topic in baseball. A road winning streak snapped as Carlos Beltran and Matt Adams homered in the 8th inning, and the St. Louis Cardinals snapped the Los Angeles Dodgers' 15-game road winning streak with a 5-1 win over the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers been so hot, going 62-50. They're 31-25 away. How big has this been for the Dodgers? I'm going to start with Nick. I mean, the Dodgers have done so well this season, and that road winning streak has really helped them out. How big was that road winning streak?
It was big, but they're still going to be hot going into late August or early August. My bad. But I think they'll still be hot. Honestly, I thought they were going to lose it last night with Adam Wainwright going to the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals, just barely edging them out. But tonight, as you said, Beltran and Adams homering. That was big. That was probably the reason why St. Louis won. And honestly, I don't think it'll hurt them too bad. It's only one game, and I know they could have broken the record, but I think that it won't hurt them that bad. They're just gonna come back, and they're gonna win tomorrow night, and I think they'll just start another streak.
Steve, I want to go to you. Is this going to be a setback for the Dodgers going on the road and getting some wins?
No, I think that even though they lost, the 15-game winning streak shows that, the resurgence of Yasiel Puig and Puig Mania, and the guy's really coming back from injury. And Max Kemp, I know he's still injured, but he's struggling when he's up to the plate this year. And that's been the case for the last couple of years, not just this year, but last year as well. So other guys have had to step up, like Henry Ramirez, he stepped up well. Yasiel Puig perfectly, replacing Andre Easter, whose guy's gone full for the last couple of years as well. And I think the team is really starting to have some chemistry. Adrian Gonzalez is always Adrian Gonzalez. He always hits the ball amazingly. And I think that, like I said, the team is found this chemistry. It's kind of like the Heat. 2011 season, the first year, they had no chemistry in the Olympic finals. And all the expectations, are just tossed at them because they didn't accomplish them. And the Dodgers had that last year, and they didn't have that at the beginning of the year, and at the later portion of last year, but they didn't have it at the beginning of the year. They didn't show it at all. They didn't have any heart. When Puig came in, I think that he's a difference maker on this Dodger team with the offense, and that starts up with everything that gets everybody in rhythm. It starts with the batting, and then the pitching does well. Zach Greinke's doing great, and Clayton Kershaw is always Clayton Kershaw. This team is just ready to be a playoff team, in my opinion. I think that it's been a few years, and I think this year is the year that they can actually do something. Possibly now CS bound ticket could be in their sights.
Yeah, and the NL West looking bright for the Dodgers, a team that will probably clinch the NL West. The D-backs have really slumped lately, a team that's only about a game over 500, and I want to go to Anthony as well. Will this make the Dodgers fight back and, get another win on the road?
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime a team has a streak like this, you can attest to how Miami, got their 20-some-odd winning streak during the regular season in the NBA. They're just good teams that are clicking at the right time and they get on a roll. The Dodgers happen to make it happen with them getting back from injuries all at the same time. Some guys that had been around have, been starting to find it as of late. Take Clayton Kershaw, for example. Over his last 8 starts, he's got an ERA under 2. He's 5-2 in those decisions. And, the offense has really picked up. That's probably the main cog of attack they had on the road was the offense. I mean, the pitching will be there. You've got Kershaw. You've got Greinke. You've just got to rely on your offense, which has been struggling. At one point in the season, third basemen on the Dodgers roster were hitting worse than starting pitchers. That's something to be said. So, and when you've got your third baseman hitting 5th, that's a problem. So, the Dodgers, they've been picking it up offensively. Their pitching has been consistent. And, I think tonight, their 5-1 loss to the Cardinals is just one of those nights where you're going to lose. There's nothing you can do about it. Kershaw goes 6 innings, allows 2 runs and 6 hits. You lose 5-1. The offense just wasn't there one night. Your winning streak already, as it was a franchise record and very impressive. So, it's a good thing to hang your hat on, but you don't want to put your head down because you've got to show up and come back to work tomorrow. Same mentality as you had the day before.
Totally agree with you. I mean, this team has really came on late because of Yasiel Puig. And I have a special guest, Chandra. I want to thank you, Chandra. How you doing?
I'm good. The Dodgers are on a roll, but they've got to keep the pace and don't leap too early. I think they're playing well, but they've got to see the finish line. They can't get ahead too fast.
I want to ask you, how big is the spark of Yasiel Puig help the Dodgers?
Oh, it's a huge spark. I mean, the guy, he can just hit the ball at the ballpark, and he can do a lot of things for the team. And he's just an awesome athlete, and hope he does more through the rest of the year.
Totally agree with you. So Puig, a great player, a guy that could be maybe, future All-Star games, maybe lead his team to the World Series. We don't know. That's just years to come. Let's actually go on topic of Yasiel Puig, a man that has really helped the Dodgers. And what do you think of Yasiel Puig, Nick? A man that's really helped this offense come alive. Do you think he could do this 3 years to come?
Honestly, I think he can. He's probably going to win MVP one day, in my opinion. He's in the running, probably front runner for NL Rookie of the Year with Jose Fernandez right behind him. But I think he can win that. The Dodgers need a Rookie of the Year. They have the most Rookies of the Year of any team. And I think that Yasiel Puig will do this for seasons to come, become a superstar, and that's what I think.
All right, and Steven, I want to ask you this question. This is really interesting. Where will Yasiel Puig be in 5 years?
I think he'll still be on the Dodgers. I don't think he'll want to leave there. I think he likes all the high market stuff. The media just on him every single time that the play teams like, especially when he came up and just became a tall superstar, kind of like a Lynn Sandy type of thing. Just a couple games, just good performing, and then just go off and continue to do well. He's doing great, and I feel like he's going to remain a superstar in LA 5 years. I don't see him as the most valuable player. I see another man called Bryce Harper being the most valuable player in 5 years. And, I feel like he'll be an all-star. He's going to continue to be a great player. It's just that, is he going to continue to do that consistently? Because we've only seen this guy for 2.5 months, and we're seeing a lot of stuff about him. But in my opinion, he'll still be a superstar. He'll be an all-star, but I can't see him as an MVP in only 5 years. Like I said, I'm going to see a guy named Bryce Harper, outfielder for the Nationals, do that. Maybe in less than 5 years, probably 3 or 4.
Totally agree with you. A guy that looks like he'd be a future All-Star, MVP, maybe World Series ring. We'll figure that out. And let's go to Anthony here. Any comments on Puig you would like to talk about, a man that's helped the Dodgers so much?
Well, when I was talking about the Dodgers' road winning streak, I think that when their offense started to come alive and get them on a roll, Puig was a main factor in that. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Since he's come up to the major leagues, he's made an immediate impact. Going back to basketball for a moment, Greg Popovich said that when you look at young guys, this is across any sport. This is a good assessment. You look at young guys, the guys you want to build your franchise around, you can call them franchise changers from day one. You pick those types of people, those types of athletes, those types of skills. You look at their record, their history, and I think Puig could be one of those guys. It just depends how he prepares himself. Everybody else can give him the tools necessary and all the resources, but how he uses them is going to determine the path of his career, the next couple of years with the Dodgers, if he can stay healthy, if he hits for a little bit more power, if he can be a little bit faster on the base pads. I mean, who knows? But to sit here and definitively say in 5 years Puig will be the MVP or will lead the Dodgers to the World Series, I think is simply crazy. You can't. There's no way to know that for a fact. There's no way to know if he's going to be able to duplicate these numbers next year. I mean, you look at the San Francisco Giants. They won the World Series in 2010. People are thinking 1 or 2 years down the road that they're still going to be there. The following year, they don't even make the playoffs. The following year, they win the World Series. And this year, despite the fact they're my favorite team, I have to say they're in last place. But it comes to a point where you have to put all that aside and just focus on the moment, what he's doing right now. And that's what the Dodgers have to seize if they want to be successful this year and for future seasons.
What I've seen so far, and I want to go off to the Giants here. Picking up Marco Scudero is a big pickup. Some of these guys that helped us win, a World Series, Cody Ross, you can debate. Brian Wilson really helped us out. Yeah, Tim Lincecum.
Edgar Renteria in 2010.
No, Edgar Renteria was awesome. A guy that really came out. Steven, I want to get your opinion on this. What do you think makes a World Series team, especially if you compare it to the Giants 2010 and 2012?
You have a spark, in my opinion. You have a spark that, if it's one player or the entire team just has perfect chemistry and all stuff. The Giants had chemistry. They had that spark last year, and it was because Posey came back. It was this, for the beginning of the year they had the spark. It was the first time Posey came back since his horrific injury. And they won a world title. 2010, they had the spark that, hey, we have the possibility to do this big, and their sights were on the Padres, and they did so in the last game of the year. Took over the NL West and they won it. And the Giants still have that spark. I feel like 2011 they didn't really have a spark. They actually had a negative spark because Posey was out for the year. Harvey Huff didn't hit at all. Andres Torres didn't hit at all. It was just an up and down year in 2011, and that's the same case for 2013. They're very inconsistent, just like in 2011. And I feel like the Giants are just season by season wise, they're inconsistent, and that's the shame of it because Yankees, they've created dynasties off winning three-year World Series, and Giants have been wanting to do that for a very long time, especially the fact in 2010 they won a World Series for the first time since this movie tonight to San Francisco, 1958. That was their first one in San Francisco. But you have to be consistent. The Yankees, 1998, 1999, 2000, they had a great team, and that's what I can see the Giants' team. They have great pitching. They have, good enough hitting. And the defense is pretty solid. So they just need to put the consistency in there, and, the stamina and ability to play 162 games a year, plus the postseason, and be consistent throughout the entire way. And I don't see it. I just don't see it happening. I don't see that, from certain players like Brandon Belt, he's never consistent. Brandon Crawford, he's on and off. He can be very hot, he can be very cold. And the pitching this year is off. The chemistry's not there. Bowman's not injured. Jagger Don is doing good, but kind of making the order of the rotation shaky. Either Don is best anymore. Kane is not really doing well anymore. Let's get a Bumgarner there. Let's just not better at Bumgarner than Bumgarner, but it's everybody that's not contributing this year. It's not just one piece of the puzzle. It's pretty much the entire agenda.
All right, well, I know I agree with that, and team chemistry does make a World Series. We're gonna wrap up the show here. I want to thank all my guests. I want to thank you, Shadra. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Nick, so much. Thank you, Steven. You always bring good knowledge to MLB, and I know you're gonna have always your Stevens. Stevens All Out Sports show. Okay, I'm messing up on your show, Steven. I feel bad. And then Anthony over here, new guy from National Sports. Want to thank him and kind of made a little debut here as well as last night. Want to thank everyone. A good night. And Aaron Siegel, part of multi-platform journalist. man that was on my show. A great guy. And yes, Nick A, want you want to say something?
Just make sure to find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And that, and we just made an Instagram page today, so be sure to find that national_sports. So find us on Instagram, and I believe the Twitter page is at National Sports. Am I right?
Number 1.
At National Sports 1.
At National Sports 1, as well as Facebook page. Look up National Sports. Look at Steven's All Out Baseball Show. Right, Steven? That's how you say it?
Yeah, Steven's baseball show.
Yes, check that out as well. I have my own page, Deits Sports Talk, and we're progressing. This has been a big recruiting week, I would have to say, and we're doing a lot of different changes, and this is just gonna be big week for us. We're getting new guys. We're gonna have a show sometime, hopefully around 10:30. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being on my show. Hopefully there will be another Deits Sports Talk next week. NS Sports Day 3 will be coming up soon. Thank you and good night.